Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Antonio Conte, Thomas Tuchel. Two outstanding managers in their own right who have a lot in common besides berating their players for 90 minutes. Both have managed Chelsea, and both have had great success with the club, with Antonio Conte winning the league in 16-17 and the FA Cup in 17-18, whilst Tuchel, on the other hand, hasn't even been in charge for a year, but has already won the Champions League and reached an FA Cup final. But perhaps the most interesting similarity is how much success both managers have had with a back three, in a league which, for the most part, doesn't use the formation much. But using the same formation doesn't mean that the teams did everything exactly the same. So what exactly are the differences between Conte's back three and Tuchel's? Let's take a look. Just before we do, one of the most commonly asked questions that I get is how I make my videos, and the answer is pretty simple. I use a video editor, and one of the most affordable around if you want to get a start today is today's sponsor, Wondershare Filmora 10, which is actually free to try. And it's simple to use. All you have to do is drag your elements onto the timeline, and the most important feature that I use is keyframing, which you guys get to see all the time when I move players and the ball around when showing tactics. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They also have things like the add-on AI portrait feature, so as you can see for an upcoming video, I can easily cut out the background, so I'm just left with Yaya Toure. There's also motion tracking, green screening, screen recording, and so much more. And you can start today with Wondershare Filmora 10 for free by clicking the link below, and after that it is one of the most affordable softwares around if you want additional features. But they're also doing a giveaway, so if you want to win a free 1-year membership, comment down below or tweet #CreateWithFilmora down below or tweet me on Twitter. Both managers could use a 3-5-2 at times, but their clear preference was for the 3-4-3. And not many have carried on from Conte's first 11 into Thomas Tuchel's, the couple who have being Azpilicueta still at right centre-back and Kante in midfield. In his second season, Conte also used Rudiger extensively at left centre-back, but the main focus for this video is Conte's Premier League winning 16-17 side. We'll begin with the build-up play, and just a quick note, if I say one side used one pattern more, it doesn't mean that the other side didn't use it at all, just that there was less focus on that. Both sides' wingbacks pushed higher up the pitch fairly early, meaning that the centre-backs saw a lot of the ball. But we do see a difference in the use of the centre-backs. For Conte, the central centre-back in David Luiz was the main man, at least in possession. So he got on the ball the most, and we could at times see him drive with it into the midfield when Chelsea needed more numbers in this region. But for Tuchel, from deeper regions, it was Rudiger, the left centre-back, who was Chelsea's main ball carrier when needed, driving up into the midfield down the left-hand side in order to unbalance the opposition's defence. This is in contrast to Cahill, who, for Conte, tended to remain deeper. When Luiz did remain deeper though, Conte would also look to take advantage of his passing range, combined with the outstanding movement of Diego Costa, who liked to play on the last shoulder of the defender, and try get into the space created. With Tuchel, Werner, who loves to run in behind, has primarily played wide on the left, so tends to start slightly deeper, and the extensive use of false nines mean that there is less opportunity to play long passes in behind. This is also the case as due to the heavy schedule, most teams Tuchel has played against haven't been pressing high and leaving space in behind for which the ball can be played. Both managers, however, have used Azpilicueta as a progressive option, with the Spaniard often moving into the midfield, especially when the team was higher up. And the midfield also had some interesting differences. Conte's midfield in Kante and Matic was more conservative when it came to going forward and utilising the ball, mainly acting as a solid defensive platform to allow the talents higher up to focus on attacking. And one thing to note is that when Fabregas was in the first 11, much like Luiz, he was much more willing to go long to find Costa running in behind. Tuchel, on the other hand, as discussed, is more possession-oriented, and this reflects in his midfield. Before injury struck him, Kovacic was actually the first-choice man alongside Jorginho, and both are masters of retaining the ball in tight spaces and running the game as a duo. The two managers' uses of Conte have also been very different. During the Conte era, Kante was still primarily seen as a defensive midfielder, more of a destroyer, so he tended to be the less adventurous of the two, whilst it was Matic down the left who had more room to advance into, helping to create an overload which could free Hazard to move around the pitch. Under Tuchel that has changed, with Kante expressing his more offensive side. This is facilitated by Jorginho, who is happier in deep regions, so we have seen a lot of Kante picking up the ball and using his speed and dribbling ability to get past compact midfields and open up the game whilst dragging his team forwards. We even see him attack spaces vacated in the wide regions when a fullback has been drawn to the wingback. This is often possible because Mount can move deeper to cover him when necessary. And the front three is perhaps where we see the most differences. The obvious first is the centre forward, with Diego Costa being very much a traditional centre forward with the strength and physicality to compete with a centre back, whilst also showing his desire to run in behind. Tuchel hasn't really had a defined centre forward, with various names getting a turn, but he has seemingly settled on Havertz at the end of the season. So, where Conte's front three were much more likely to stick to their positions on papers, Tuchel's consistently rotated. And as discussed, Tuchel is more possession-oriented, so Mount could drop deeper to be the third midfielder or an attacking midfielder, whilst the forwards shifted to a front two. But Havertz, Pulisic and Ziyech are all comfortable in midfield areas, so two of them could drop into the midfield with Werner pushing high. So where they had a double pivot, this could quickly become a 3 or a 4, allowing them to maintain possession in central regions. For Conte, Hazard, if anyone, could drop deeper off the left to pick up the ball when the double pivots were struggling. But still, he preferred to operate much higher than Mount, who is a genuine midfielder. Pedro, on the other hand, was content down the right and was less likely to shift positions. Perhaps this is why in Tuchel's midfield, Kante has to push forward and support a lot more of the fullback, as there is no man in the half space. But perhaps having so many men who want to come towards the ball rather than run in behind like Conte's has partly led to a more functional attack for Tuchel, with Conte's team averaging 2.5 goals per game compared to Tuchel's 1.26. Let's quickly look at the defense. Conte's side for the most part did not look to press, and during the 16-17 season, only 7 teams pressed less than they did. Tuchel, on the other hand, despite the condensed schedule, has pressed more, and only 2 teams have pressed more than his Chelsea side. So while the double pivot of Conte's would look to bide time to allow the attackers to recover into deep positions, Tuchel is more front foot, shifting to a front 2 with Mount in behind looking to cover one of the pivots. Both teams have been hugely successful, but it is always interesting to see the subtle tactical differences present even in teams that use the same formation. But what do you make of these two sides? Drop it down below. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast.